a hacker has created a NFT of a zero-day exploit. And that's basically an NFT that would give somebody instructions about how to execute one that they've found. Now, zero-day exploit is essentially a kind of large-scale vulnerability that is not known to the parties involved, that affects a large number of people and requires kind of a hardware or software upgrade and patch to be issued to fix it. Now, to me, the one that was made into an NFT is seemingly fairly low stakes. And I should say OpenSea, where it was hosted, has since been taken the auction down. But this just opens up a whole list of questions about, what NFTs could be used for and what some of the, darker sides of it might actually end up being. But first, somebody in the group take this away. I could talk forever, but I want to get everybody else involved.
I want to focus in on it being delisted from the OpenSea platform. I think that's actually really interesting that that marketplace operator stepped in and censored these transactions from taking place. So I think that's really interesting. I know that there may be talk of decentralized exchanges for these ERC 721 tokens, and interesting moves like this may make the world of NFTs even more permissionless going forward, which I think would be really a bit scary. So I don't know. I wanted to focus in on that and see, Ben, first of all, sort of what's your take on the ramifications of them taking action last night to remove this from their marketplace?
Yeah, so I've got a whole story coming later on this where I'm going to get into all these details. I'm waiting for OpenSea to get back to me actually explaining their reasoning and when they took this down actually, because this is not something you've often seen on these platforms as far to my knowledge. I spoke with some lawyers for this forthcoming piece, and they kind of said that this isn't illegal to post this content necessarily, where we could get into tricky legal territory if somebody buys it and then uses that exploit to invade somebody's system or something like that. To be clear, like this one that is being NFT'd right now is fairly low stakes and involves kind of a DDoS attack, a distributed denial of service attack on a game engine. So it really only affects, about 28 sort of online games. This isn't like high level security stuff that we're necessarily talking about, but it sets a really kind of tricky precedent from an ethical perspective about, what if somebody gets involved in this and they're trying to sell something that is a larger level zero-day exploit? Those are big deals. And then particularly in a completely distributed system, we don't know who could buy those. And that's another point a lawyer raised with me, was just saying, like, if you don't know who the buyer is, there's a lot of implications around national security and other things that come into effect here. So this was just the first ever time that I've seen this happen and I've heard of this happening. And to me, it was sort of a use case for NFTs that I hadn't even thought of, but it shows that these things are all just tools and people are going to be able to use them kind of however they want to, for better or for worse.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we also have to realize that all these NFT platforms, they're all experimenting in very different ways. So some of them are saying, well, what you see is what you get, but you'll just have the ownership of something. Some people are saying, well, this is going to be kind of like Satoshi's box back in 2013. I don't know what happened with that site, but it was a site where you pay and you unlock something larger, right? So some NFT platforms are operating kind of like that. Like you buy this thing, but what you get actually is hidden and you get that after, which seems to be the zero-day thing. And then, you've got all these kind of collaborative, exciting areas, but we do have to realize there's a darker side to this, as you mentioned, Ben, because we could be talking about child porn. We could be talking about all of these things. Like if you unlock this digital asset, you get these other things. And if we're talking about decentralized marketplaces, it does get this really kind of murky territory, right? Where people are doing really bad things and other people are doing good things. So how do you deal with the underlying technology? And that's the kind of the problem with tech. Well, actually, it's also the good thing about tech is tech is inherently neutral. Yeah. So we've got to find ways to go after, the criminals. And I just hope that's what happens here, is that we focus on the people who are doing bad things with this and not focus on criminalizing or smearing the tech itself. Like I hope that NFTs don't get a bad rap because some people are doing bad things with it. Obviously, government or law enforcement should be focusing on the people who are actually doing the bad things.
Yeah, and this doesn't rise to that level necessarily. And I think it's important to say that, there are underground marketplaces for zero-day hacks. There are bug bounty programs for zero-day hacks. So this was really somebody looking at kind of what they think is the sort of an engineer saying the beauty and arts of an exploitation like this and thinking of it as digital art around computer code. So this would exist elsewhere if it wasn't an NFT. But that to me was a really interesting use case of NFTs I hadn't thought of. But Anna, I know you were kind of interested in this story. So what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, you actually just said what I was about to say, that there is already a huge darknet market for stuff like that, for cyber malware, for any other nefarious things. But actually, here we see that people are bringing more, they're kind of bringing the more publicity to it. Now. They're bringing more attention to the fact that this kind of business, this kind of trade exists. And you don't have to go to some deep web marketplace to see these things sold. I mean, now you have, because OpenSea removed it. But again, like I'm still not sure about like the non-fungibility part of this. So basically, anybody who buys this thing can then like copy paste the code and then sell it on the dark market for other money. And the seller would have no idea that what he sold as an NFT is going to be resold in another form. So like I'm still, the only thing that bothers me here is this non-fungibility, which is quite ephemeric, I guess.